All right. So what will we do? So we're going to look at initial training program design as the crux of what we're doing, but we might just do a quick review of some of the concepts that we went over last week.
Mhm.
Were there any questions or anything that's come up with programming at all during the week?
Not with programming. I do have a question to ask you, but not with programming.
Okay. Well, ask the question now.
I just wanted tips around and how you went around with retention. So obviously your history with the retention is very, very, very good. And that's
Yes.
one of my main goals at the moment is actually to get that up.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
look,
one of my main focuses.
yeah, I'll probably do a
That
whole
would be
thing
good.
on retention.
That would be good, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I will. What I would say is, so the programming's is one part of it. So I'm good at programming, and I'm good at laying out a pathway and periodization and communicating to the client the rationale behind the periodization model, so that they have a vision of what they could achieve. So I set expectations for mid and longer term goals, and I want them to ultimately integrate training into their lifestyle as something that they do forever, and not just a 12 or 13 week block.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to do that with me, but my goal is to teach them to have the skills so that they can do that. And I tell them that that's what I want to do with them, and I want them to experience all the benefits that strength training can give to them for their life. So I think apart from having a sound knowledge of actual training program principles, I'm also quite good at figuring out what people like, what exercises they like, what movements they do well, and there's a fine line between giving the client what they need and what they want, but I always make sure there's an element of enjoyment, as much as there can be in the training program design, so that they enjoy the workouts that they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that my general philosophy that we went over last week about periodizing towards functional hypertrophy and relative strength rep ranges is advantageous, because they see themselves getting stronger. And when they start to be able to perform workouts that there's no way they could have done, 8 weeks ago when they walked in, and they've developed this level of strength, and they see that if they keep getting stronger, how rewarding that actual process is.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people want to hang around for. And the one of the things is as a coach, it's easy enough to take clients through workouts, and push them, but to actually teach them how to get strong and to do a heavy set of five for a back squat or a deadlift, where they have a little bit of fear factor, and they're doing something that they're not quite sure they could do on their own. That's when you can actually be a really good coach, and not just a PT. You're teaching this client how to get strong, and also supporting the psychology that goes into doing that kind of stuff. So the broad message I'm giving is that the program design and periodization is, I think, one element that keeps clients coming back, because they enjoy what's happening.
Yeah.
And then I think there are more things as well, but I think generally I'm good with people, and I really I take it very seriously that they're paying me money to train them, and I really connect. I try and connect. I listen well. I ask good questions. I know about their family and their work and what's going on, and I genuinely want the best for them. And I think there's an energetic thing that goes on there um, that people appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Hey, Sophie. I'm not sure if she can hear me. Um, yeah. So does that sort of
You know,
answer the
yeah,
question
yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit?
yeah.
Yeah.
But it would be awesome to have one video maybe in depth on how you actually do it. But
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I certainly will. I certainly will. Um, Any other questions?
No, so far.
No.
No. Good.
All good? All right. So we'll do, I'll do a screen share and we'll just do a quick review of some of the stuff that happened last week. Okay. So here's the pyramid. So before we get into the pyramid, does anyone remember what the three training variables or programming parameters are the things that we have to manipulate within program design?
You got volume, intensity, and frequency?
Correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. Volume, intensity, frequency. Okay, and so what does volume refer to?
Like the amount of load?
No, so intensity is the amount of load.
Oh, okay.
Intensity is the weight on the bar. Yep.
Volume is how many sets?
Correct. Volume is the total number of reps, sets, and exercises that are performed in the workout. And then frequency. Anyone want to have a go at frequency?
How many times a week you are training, or how many? Not sets. How many times a week?
How many times a week? Yes, it's how many times a week you train each muscle group or movement pattern or body system within the week. So if you were just doing, say, like the traditional kind of bro split, where you might do back day, chest day, leg day, shoulders and biceps day, or biceps, triceps, and then shoulders. So you've got like 5 different workouts. Because you're only doing one body part per workout, you can do 5 workouts in the week.
Yeah.
But if if you were doing, say, total body workouts, and you were doing, say, deadlift and bench pressing and back squatting all in the one workout, it would be hard to do that 5 days a week because you're training the same movement patterns and the same muscle groups every day.
Yeah.
So it's harder to recover from that. So frequency, it's not just the frequency of training sessions we have, it's the actual frequency of exposure to each muscle group and to each movement pattern or movement system of the body.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then so to refresh, the overall principle is that we can't lift super heavy. So we can't have high intensity and high volume. So super heavy weights for lots of sets and lots of reps every day at high frequency. So you can't have all 3 in the program. So you pick 2 parameters that you lean on and one gets backed off.
Yeah.
And so for a beginner, so if we're designing a training program for a general population beginner client, inherently intensity is going to be low because they don't have any strength. So intensity is low.
But high volume.
So we have volume, except they're not that good at training. So the volume they get is the volume they get, but they haven't yet developed a huge amount of work capacity. So they might not necessarily be able to do heaps of sets of heaps of reps, but the reps will be high. So the volume of reps will be high, but maybe the volume of sets won't be too high initially, but that can build up over time. But certainly volume, their training program will be higher in volume. And then we have frequency. And if they're training with low intensity, moderate volume, then frequency can be quite high. And if you can get a beginner client in and get them to actually train frequently, then they learn quickly. So motor learning is enhanced. We kind of spoke about that a little bit last week. So they learn the movement patterns quicker. They develop the skill of training quicker. They get more exposures to each movement pattern. They develop strength and they're expending energy, and the whole process of their body recomposition happens faster. So, and frequency is one of these things when you get in with a new client. Do you find, say, in like an initial consultation when you're going through, you've asked them all the questions, you've got all the information that they need, you've got an idea about what you're going to do, and they ask, well, how often should I train? So the answer that I would give to that is, I say, okay, if you train one time per week, if you do one total body workout per week, then it'll be like going to have tennis lessons once a week or something like that. You'll get better at training and your numbers will slightly improve each week for a period of time, maybe about 8 weeks or 10 weeks, depending on their genetics and how skillful they are. But then they'll get to a point where they're not capable of getting any further progress because 1 week exposure is all that's going to give them. They might build a little bit of muscle. If their nutrition's good, they might drop some body fat, but there's not going to be a huge shift in body composition. But it's not nothing. If they train once a week and they did that every week for the rest of their life or a whole year, still be 50 workouts, 52 workouts that they wouldn't have done otherwise. So it's not nothing. If they train twice a week, then they get not just double the benefits, but a compounded result on just once a week. So they get 2 exposures. They're stimulating muscle growth twice a week. So the recovery cycle from training is getting hit twice. So they're more likely to build more muscle. They'll expend more energy. They'll force more metabolic adaptation. So their body composition everything will happen quicker. And they'll probably keep getting results. They could probably get, 15 to 20 weeks of consistent results training twice a week if their nutrition is good. But then once again, they will hit a plateau and they'll only can go as far as what 2 weeks, 2 times training, 2 total body workouts a week can give them. And that'll plateau out at some point, depending on their genetics and what their background's like and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's that. Then I will go, if you train 3 times and above, so anywhere from 3 to 6 times per week, then the whole process is unlocked. And you can then train consistently at 3 times a week and hit a frequency of 3 times per body part if they were total body workouts. You could develop all the strength you need. You could get a great change in your body composition and build some muscle mass and drop body fat and keep getting progress for not just 20 weeks or a year. You could probably get that sort of 1 to 3 years of the growth that a beginner or the progress or the training age that a beginner can develop over 3 years of continual of progress. Progress slows over time and will start to diminish, but 3 times a week and above will give them the results that ultimately they probably want. So when a client asks me how often should I train, how many times a week should I do with you, or should I do some on my own, or how do I structure it? I basically lay out that range of options and let them choose. I mean, it's pretty obvious which one is the best to choose, but it depends on their lifestyle and how busy they are and how much money they want to invest in the process and all of that. But they know the rationale of what's likely to happen if they choose any pathway for moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's volume, intensity, and frequency. And I've got an example of an initial training program that we'll have a look at, and we can put these factors sort of into paper, so to speak. Before we do that, we'll do a quick refresher on the pyramid of intensity. So if we were training in this middle block here, and we're doing rep ranges anywhere from 8 to 15, what do we call this strength quality?
Functional hypertrophy?
Close.
Just the hypertrophy.
Just the hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Hang on. Hypertrophy. Okay, so these rep ranges, so hypertrophy is the building of muscle mass. It's the thickening and the lengthening and the strengthening of actual muscle fibers and the growth of new fibers. So exposure to higher volume in terms of reps is great for hypertrophy. And so we classify anything from sort of 8s to 16 and beyond, even all the way down to 30s, is hypertrophy training.
Yeah.
So functional hypertrophy that you mentioned, Bailey, is the next bracket up. Why do we call it functional hypertrophy?
Can't remember.
It's there. If you were to think logically about it, you'd find the reason. If we're developing strength, so if we're doing lower reps, 5, 6, 7s, and some 8s, you're developing. There is a strength stimulus there, so you're getting some hypertrophy, but it's also muscle mass that's functional. So you get some sort of a greater strength benefit out of those rep ranges. So you're getting a nice blend of hypertrophy and strength.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're calling that the functional hypertrophy. So then, if we're going deeper in strength, the next one is relative strength. Why do we call it relative strength? So doing rep ranges threes and 5s.
Relative to your body weight.
Correct. So the rep ranges aren't high enough to necessarily generate or produce a great hypertrophy stimulus, but they're very good at developing strength. And so if you're not building a lot of muscle, but you're building a lot of strength, you're increasing your strength relative to your body weight. So your body weight should stay relatively stable, but your strength should increase. So we call that relative strength. And then at the very top, if we think about powerlifting and doing heavy singles and 1s and 3s, we call this maximal strength, because this is the maximum amount of strength that you can produce, and that's why they call that. Not particularly relevant to our demographic, but might be nice to play around yourself with some training. Any questions on any of that?
Just to clarify, so as you work your client up the pyramid, that's so when you come back down to hypertrophy, their base is a lot stronger.
Correct.
And it's like you're not over. Is it because you're not over exhausting like hypertrophy for too long? You can get better gains, sort of going through the triangle and coming back down to the bottom.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's partly that. It's partly giving them the change in like the undulating periodization kind of thing, or a periodization model. So they're getting exposure to different rep ranges, but it's largely because by the time they've spent time developing their strength, they have a lot more strength than when they started at hypertrophy the first time. So they can go back to, say, even the first program that they did, or go back to another hypertrophy program doing 12s and 14s, but they have a lot more strength. So they can use heavier weights for those reps than they would have been able to do so prior on their first trip up, right? So they can get more out of their hypertrophy work having developed their strength.
Okay. And then as the clients developed, would you then, as you go through the triangle, like manipulate intensity? Like, because as you go up, the intensity would be the tool. Would it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Yeah. So we're developing increasing intensity. So we're leaning on intensity, but volume comes down. So the actual volume of reps, you're doing 3s and 5s, so that you're not doing 12s and 14s. So volume is down there. You have to choose your sets appropriately. But if you think about a traditional kind of relative strength, it's 5 by 5. So it's 5, you're doing 5 sets. And there may only be 2 exercises that you do that rep range with. So it could be the 2 compound lifts. I mean, you might be doing like a bench press and a pull up. So you do 5 sets of 5 of those main compounds. And then you would work on the accessory lift. So the overall number of exercises and the total sets for the workout might be slightly less than you would do in hypertrophy. So volume is down.